Are bedroom guitar players stupid? I recently put up an Instagram story inviting you guys to ask me stupid bedroom guitarist questions that you are too afraid to ask. And of course, there is no such thing as a stupid question if you are just trying to learn and educate yourself. So these are some of the questions that you guys asked. How to improve picking hand speed and endurance? Just relax. Tips to keep fretting hand relaxed. Relax. Give me a simple step-by-step guide of how to do a guitar cover properly. So typically these days when people do covers, they are recording the audio beforehand and then matching up the video to it later. You would get the song, throw it into your DAW of choice, and then match up the metronome and the tempo to that song so that when you record it, you are recording it in time and you're recording it against the actual song. And then when you record the video for it, you have that track playing in the background so you can basically just mime it on video and play it against the original cover. People might see this as a little bit disingenuous because you're not actually doing it in that moment in that video take. That's why one take covers and one take playthroughs do exist online, because people do like the novelty of having it being a one take cover. However, I don't really mind if it's just like, you know, that traditional way of covering where you record everything beforehand and then match up the video, because most times you can tell if someone can actually play the part or not based on how they're physically playing it on the video. If it sounds one way and it looks another way, then that's the dead giveaway that they actually can't play the song. But if the audio sounds and looks exactly the way that they're physically playing the instrument on the video, then to me that's absolutely fine. How do I baritone without a baritone? Pitch shifting sounds awful when it's too low. Unfortunately, if you really want to sound like a true baritone guitar without all the awful pitch shifting artifacts that come when you tune excessively low on a pitch shifter, the only real way to do it is to have an actual baritone guitar. You can do things like EQing the DI before it hits the front of the amp after the pitch shifting, but that's a little bit too advanced for this video, and if you're willing to go to all that stuff anyway and get all those plugins and spend all that money, you might as well just spend the money on a baritone guitar. How do I get my guitar to sound less muddy after recording it? I'm a big believer in getting things as right as they can be at the production stage when you're dialing in the tone in the first place. If you feel like you need to do a lot of things to your guitar tone after you've recorded it, chances are it wasn't a good guitar tone to begin with, and you should probably go back and dial in something that's a little bit more suited to your playing and the style that you're going for. My tapping sucks unless I use a pick for the tap. How do I do it correctly with the finger? So when you're using your finger to tap, rather than using this part here, this kind of like fleshy part on the bottom side of the finger, try and use the callus, this part here, the top of the finger. This is the hardest part of any of your fingers. This is where you're kind of getting all of your strength from when you start playing guitar. Not only is it pretty much the hardest part of your finger to hit on the string, but it also has the smallest surface area on your finger, and it will take the smallest surface area up on the fretboard so that when you flick it off, you'll be less likely to hit other strings or make extra noise or stuff like that. Does changing pick from a used pick to a new pick make a difference when recording? Having a fresh pick makes all the difference because the tip of the pick won't be so rounded and you'll have a sharper attack on the strings, which ultimately affects your transient detail and how you sound going to the front of the amp. It will affect the brightness of your tone, all that stuff. How many times do you change strings while recording? They have to be fresh every day sort of thing. So of course, when you're recording, you want the strings to be as fresh as possible across all the takes. Whether it's, you know, something that you did 2 days ago or something that you do today, you want those sounds to be consistent. If I was gonna measure this and I was being really anal about it, which I am, right? What I would do is I would string my guitar with fresh strings, record a riff, and then have that saved somewhere in the project for reference later on as a guitar DI. Then if I end up recording for 3 or 4 hours and I start to feel like my strings are sounding a little bit dead than they were 3 or 4 hours ago, I can then record the same riff on the same set of strings and then use a spectrum analyzer to see how bright my tone is now compared to the one that we did before. Then you can see if you need to change strings. How to tell if you need to adjust the string height or adjust the truss rod. Me personally, my gauge of reference is if I'm playing and it's buzzing anywhere past the 12th fret, that's a pretty good indication that the bridge saddles are too low, so you would probably need to raise them just a bit at the bridge. But if you're buzzing, you know, on open strings or anywhere below the 12th fret, that's most likely a truss rod issue, or maybe the string has slipped too far into the nut and it's carved itself in and you need to get your nut refilled. Is there truly a difference between free and paid plugins? In my experience, the sound that you would get from maybe a free EQ and a paid EQ isn't really all that different. What is different is your experience using it and the UI and the GUI and all that stuff. Paid plugins, for most cases, are much easier to use, much more intuitive, and they get things done quicker, which when you're getting serious into this stuff, That's really all you want. You want things to be quick, easy, and manageable. And for me, they work absolutely great. Do you record riffs to drums pre-programmed or to a click and then program drums? So I prefer to record my riffs to a programmed drum track and a click at the same time. But the drum track is a little bit more important, as you know, most of the time in modern metal, the stuff that I'm doing, the kick is pretty much doing exactly what the guitar is doing. So I can line up my playing with the kick drum as I hear it back to me while I'm recording it. And over the years, I have no doubt that that has made my timing, at least like instinctively, much, much better. How do you learn to program drums for songs if you have no drum experience? If you have no experience in drumming, you've never touched a drum set in your life and you don't know how drummers play, the first thing I always suggest is to go look at videos of your favorite bands and see if any of them have drum playthroughs on YouTube. That way you can watch them play the song, you can see where their hands are hitting, why they're hitting it, what sounds like this, what sounds like that. What does this cymbal sound like? What does that cymbal sound like? Why do they hit the snare here? All these questions that you can ask yourself, and you can relate it back to the songs that you pretty much already know for the most part. That way you can then use that as a point of reference when you're programming your songs, which are most likely going to be reminiscent of those ones anyway, because you're always going to try and be inspired by what you're listening to. When using plugins, do you reamp on a new track or just bounce it? So when I'm recording guitars, no matter when it is, no matter what I'm doing, I always record 2 instances at the same time. The first one is my guitar input DI, which then has a plugin on that track, and I'm recording the printed tone out of that plugin. And then the second instance is just a pure DI signal where I've just got the input of my guitar recording. I've disconnected it from the master so I can't hear it, but the track is armed along with the first one, and I'm recording them both at the same time. That way, anything I record has both the printed tone that I was hearing in that moment, as well as the DI that I can then reamp later if I feel like it. Are guitars always fully quantized to the grid? Do you always need to edit all the guitar parts? Thanks. There really is no right or wrong with like quantizing guitars against the grid. It really just, again, depends on the context. For example, if you were doing like a sludge or like a doom metal record or something like that, you probably wouldn't want to quantize any of the guitars. If you were doing like a jazz record, you want that free flowy thing going on. You wouldn't really want to mess with the timing per se. But if you're looking for that really polished, super modern metalcore or whatever it may be, then yes, maybe quantizing the guitars to the grid would get you further to the sound that you probably have in your head based on what artists you listen to in that genre. How many spliced and glued together guitar takes is too many? Honestly, I don't really think there's a number on too many, but what I would suggest is that if you are playing it live, at least make sure that you can play the riff in one take at a level that you think is at least representable to whatever you recorded. If you don't plan on playing it live and it's purely just for creative purposes, then by all means, do as many takes as you want. No one cares. You'd be very surprised at how many takes are being used and recorded for all of your favorite bands as riffs. Do you care if someone records at half tempo to get the perfect take? Not really. If you're recording something and it's for creative purposes, then whatever, record it in quarter speed. It won't sound very good, but record it in whatever speed you want. I don't really care. It's a different story when you go to play it live and you claim that you can play that part. If you claim that you can play that part and you choose to play it live and then you can't play it, or you get a backing track to do it or something like that, that's where I have an issue. And I think that's where most people would have an issue as well. Should I get studio monitors without wall treatment or stick to headphones? My answer to this question is always the same. It's if you have a good space that is empty that you can truly turn into a studio, then by all means, get the treatment and run the monitors. But if you're kind of stretched for space, or it's a shared space, or it's not really a studio space, I find that good headphones with correction on them, if you can, are always a good option. I use these headphones all the time. These are my Sennheiser HD 650s, and these have the Sonarworks Sound ID referencing calibration on them. So I got them straight from the Sonarworks website, and these specific headphones, the ones that I'm holding in my hands, no one else will have this calibrated set. I have a profile on the computer where it automatically corrects the EQ of these headphones, so it's as flat as possible, just like monitors are designed to be. When are you confident that something is good enough to post? So I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. If I can sit there and truly believe that I've done everything to the best of my ability, and I'm happy with the output that I have made and the piece of content that I've created, then absolutely that is enough to post. For me, if I stay up at night wondering if I did this or if I did that, if I changed this or if I put better lighting or if I recorded it better, that's when I think, to me, it wouldn't be good enough or satisfying to post. How much theory do you know? Where's the best place to start? I don't really know that much theory. Like, I know the notes and stuff. I know what major sounds like. I know what minor sounds like. I know what a couple of other modes sound like harmonic minor and Lydian and all that stuff. And that's just come from learning songs from bands that use these modes. I think a really good place to start is at least know the notes in the Western scale and know what songs sound like. You can figure out if a song is in drop G or drop F based on what the lowest note is. And then from there, learning different modes in relation to the top string of the guitar. So if you want to play something that sounds like Mark Holcomb from Periphery, you can use the Lydian stuff. If you want to play something that sounds like Lamb of God, you know that you can use the harmonic minor stuff and you know which frets are what. If you have any other stupid guitar or bedroom musician questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I might make a part 2 to this video in the future. Ciao.